assemblies, some of the people of southern Iraq, for example, when they refer to the food being distributed, they always call it Zad Abu Ali, right? It comes from extra or comes from plethora of things. So the plethora of the food that is from the majlis of Abu Ali, meaning Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. So that's where the word Zad comes from. In this case, Zad al-Rakib, it basically translates to the one who is the most generous when accompanying Abu Salama in any trip they would go. So for example here, this source is narrated in also Ibn Hajar's Isaba. He says, ويلقب أبوها بزاد الراكب لأنه كان أحد الأجواد فكان إذ سافر لا يترك أحدا يرافقه ومعه زاد بل يكفي رفقته من الزاد. He says that he was given the nickname Zad al-Rakib, the traveler's provision, because he was one of the most generous ones. When he traveled, he would not have anyone accompanying him to bring him provisions, as he would provide his companions that he'd be traveling with any provisions from his own. He would not. So if you were on a trip with the father of Abu Salama, he would take care of you in whatever these trips may be. Either it would be the trips that they used to go to Rihat al-Shita'i wal-Sayf, to go get provisions for back to Quraysh and so on. But he would be the one and known to be that individual who is very well loved amongst the Arabs. And there was an incident actually that occurred with Salama herself that she narrates when she came to Medina. She says, أخبرت إنها لما قدمت المدينة أخبرتهم إنها بنت أبي أمية بن المغيرة. Because this man was so well known, right? Not just in Mecca, even though they're from Mecca, he was so well known even in Medina amongst the Arabs. She comes to Medina, the first thing she says, I am the daughter of Abi Umayyah ibn al-Mughira. Because of how much this man was known, the first thing they said to her is that, how deceitful are these strangers? They're claiming to be the son or daughter of Abu Umayyah, right? Right away. And then of course, then they told them, okay, they went to Hajj, and then they told them, write a letter, and then she wrote a letter, and she received, and they were very embarrassed, right? That they treated her that way. So it kind of shows you how honorable this man was, even at the time of Jahiliyyah. So that concerns Abu Umayyah al-Makhzumi. And also, by the way, he's actually the uncle of Abu Talib alayhi salam. So the uncle of Abu Talib was Abu Umayyah al-Makhzumi. It's interesting because Abu Talib, and if you go read some of his poetry, Diwan Abu Talib, you'll find that he praises his uncle a lot. And again, speaks to his generosity and to his kindness and to how he was that Zad al-Rakib, the traveler's provision. Now her mother, her mother's name was Atiqa, the daughter of Amr, son of Rabi'a, son of Malik al-Kunaniya from Banu Faris. This is as reported in Tariq al-Tabari. And in another report, it says that she's actually the daughter of the aunt of Atiqa, who was the daughter of Abdul Muttalib, right? Which is where you find that connection here to basically Banu Hashim, being that Abu Talib then becomes Abu Talib's uncle becomes Abu Umayyah. So that's where that connection to Banu Hashim is possible, where between the family of Salama and then the family of Abdul Muttalib and Banu Hashim and Abu Talib. Now her tribe is interesting because you may have come across a lot of individuals in your studies, for example, in the beginning message of Islam, who gave the Prophet a lot of trouble, right? So you'll find that this tribe, Banu Makhzum, who is very well known till today, by the way, a lot of them actually, you'll find them, from what I know in modern day Iraq and Najaf, you'll find a lot of Makhzumis that that means they must have traced their lineage back to that area in Mecca. They traveled there. A lot of huge tribe, Banu Makhzum. So Banu Makhzum, this is where that comes in between Banu Hashim and Banu Makhzum, is that they had a musahara. Musahara meaning between them, there was a lot of marriage, a lot of companionship between these two tribes. And their example, again, if you look at history, you'll find that their tribe was very well known to be both, they have the honorable people, the generous people, but again, you also have the lowest of the low. So the example I was referring to that everybody here knows, that's also from the Makhzumi tribe, is none other than Abu Jahl himself. Abu Jahl himself was from Banu Makhzum. And at the same time, in that same period of time, another individual that we will introduce shortly, Abu Salama, so the first husband of Salama, Abu Salama, was also from Banu Makhzum. both of them at the same time, right? One of them decided to be the biggest enemy to the Prophet and to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then one of them accepted Islam in the blink of an eye. And that is Abu Salama. When we look at his biography, inshallah, when we get there. So you find that in this tribe. You have both the Salih and the Talih, those who won the victory with Allah and those who lost. Now, again, when it comes to these individuals, as we looked at Mus'ab ibn Umair and some of the others, is that in the beginning period, when there was a more difficult writing of history, and you'll find that their birth dates are not as known or well known. So this is unfortunately one of those examples here, is that Salama's date of birth from a historian or from a hadith, you'll find maybe nothing there, other than the fact that you'll find is that there's more narrations for her death. And similar to what we did for Mus'ab ibn Umair, is that we know the period of his death, and we can kind of make an estimate then to figure out, because we'll know her death and kind of the age in which she died, and from that we can make a correlation to have an estimate of the date of her birth. But unfortunately, when it comes to the death of Salama, there is the author here mentions 6 different reports that amongst the historians themselves it's a difference of opinion, right? Now, just for the sake of benefit, let's read these quickly. The first report, Ibn Athir says 57 after Hijrah. And some of you right now probably are already trying to, those who know a bit about what happened in Karbala and what we said previous week are probably already seeing some of the errors with these dates, because those who know that that Salama was present in Medina after the martyrdom of Sayyid al-Shuhada al-Husayn ibn Ali, peace and blessings be upon him, right? So I hope that's where the brains are going right now. The first date, 57 after Hijrah. Second date, Ibn Mandur, 58 after Hijrah. A third date, 59 after Hijrah. This is by Al-Waqidi and Ibn Asakir and Tariq Dimashq and others. The fourth date is the 61st after Hijrah, but on the day of Ashura specifically, right, which also doesn't make sense. And that's why you'll find that the author of this book and several others have kind of disregarded the first 4 reports. And the said 2 other reports is that she died in the year 61 after Hijrah, so it gives you that time span, right? And that is sometime after the martyrdom of Sayyid al-Shuhada alayhi salam, after the news of Abu Abdullah alayhi salam's martyrdom was received, and then died in the year 62 after Hijrah, during the same time where Yazid ibn Muawiyah was still the ruler at the time. So like we said, the first 4 reports, based off the plethora of narrations that we have, that Salama was present at the time of the killing of Hussein, not in Karbala but in Medina, and that she heard the news in terms of, we will look at those reports inshallah, because we are still in the month of Safar now, right? And we want to make sure that at the same time we're looking at this biography, we still want to kind of mention the tragedies of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, right? It's very, very important. So Salama was actually one of the first people, when she found out, we'll look at the hadith in detail, when that soil that Rasulullah gave her turned blood on that day of Ashura, 61 after Hijrah, 10th of Muharram. She is known as the first person to do surah over Abu Abdullah, meaning to scream in sorrow, right? She also narrates that she heard the lamentation of the jinn during those moments. And there's also historical evidence that people used to enter upon her and send her condolences, that I send my condolences to you on the passing of your son Abu Abdullah, your grandson Abu Abdullah al-Husayn alayhi salam. So again, because we're still in the month of Muharram and Safar, I really wanted to, for the sake of benefit, mention some of these narrations. The first of these narrations, and we'll give you the exact source, Al-Bidayah wa Nihaya, Ibn Kathir, volume 8, page 169, and Musnad Ahmad, Fada'il al-Sahaba, Ibn Hanbal, volume 1, hadith 1357. So this specific one is from Ahmad ibn Hanbal's Fada'il al-Sahaba, and he narrates this with his chainless transmission from, he says, either Aisha or Salama. And that's this Aisha or Salama comes from the narrator himself, as we will see. The narrator himself yataraddad between the 2 individuals, not sure, remembering who was the exact person that heard this report. She says, the Prophet ﷺ said, in this instance, an angel entered upon me that has never entered upon me before. right? So this is neither Gabriel alayhi salam nor any of the other angels, because you'll see that more than 4 instances, by the way, this happened. This nida, this news from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to inform the Prophet about Sayyid al-Shuhada, the Prince of Martyrs, al-Hussein ibn Ali, and his martyrdom occurred more than 4 or 5 times, and several companions narrate this incident or something similar to it. We have an angel, Jibreel alayhi salam. We have the angel that's the Malik of the Qatar, the angel that's responsible for rain. And in this case, the Prophet said, an angel entered upon me that I've never seen before. And he came, and the first thing he said to me, your son Hussein will be killed, and if you like, I can show you the land upon which he will be killed. He then passed me the red turba, the soil of Karbala. And then the commentary from the book itself says, and this hadith has been narrated in a different context from Salama, and Al-Tabarani reported it from Abi Umayyah, and all of the narrators are sahih, all of them are trustworthy. And similarly, the individual, the narrator who kind of mentions this taraddud between Salama and Aisha was the last narrator, Waki'. He himself says, I did not know if it was Aisha or Salama, that's from my own memory. But this specific hadith and several other ones like this report this incident where Salama was given this soil, and that on the day of Ashura, she basically saw the soil turn red, right? Or the other instances where the other incident where she saw in her dream that a limb from the limbs of the Prophet ﷺ was on her knees. It fell on her basically, and then when she informed the Prophet, as you guys know, Hussein is from me and I am from Hussein. He told her that my son Hussein will be killed in Karbala. All of these instances that can be found in the books of Hadith amongst the Muslims, and you can find them in the most sahih, authentic chains down to Hasan, good chains, reliable chains, weak chains, but there's a plethora of these, right? And then specifically when it comes to Salama herself, you'll find that this occurred, and on the day of Ashura, this is how she was informed basically. So because of this and because of other narrations, it makes it clear that Salama, at least based on all these sahih reports, that she was present at least on the 10th of Ashura, 61 after Hijrah, in Medina, right? And that kind of disregards, and there's way more narrations here, there's too much to go through, but I'm just kind of mentioning them in passing in summary. But all of this kind of tells us that the first 4 reports we can cast aside and at least say that it's sometime which is the 61 after Hijrah and onwards. Now to conclude here, supposedly actually there is one very one-sided narration that says that even at the year 63 after Hijrah, she was possibly present, because in Waqi'at al-Harra, the incident of Harra, there's one like narration that points that during that attack, when Yazid attacked Medina and the Waqa' of Harra occurred, that she was also present during that time. So we can even push the date to 63 after Hijrah. Now this takes account of all of the dates, but then you'll find that when it comes to her age, we have 2 main reports that because there is no disagreement amongst all of the scholars, the Muslim scholars, is that the last of Ummahatul Mu'mineen, the last of the mothers of the believers and the wives of the Prophet to pass away was Salama alayha radwan. And the 2 dates we have is the one from Tabaqat al-Kubra of Ibn Sa'ad, saying that she was 84 years old at that time, and that narration actually is narrated by her son Umar ibn Abi Salama, in which he says that I actually came down with my brother in her grave and buried her, and at that time she was 84 years of age. And then there's another book by Al-Nujum al-Zahira that mentions that she was 90 or more. And now, based off all of this, we can say that the possibility of her birth, based off these 2 years and then the date of her death, is number 1, before the Mab'ath of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so before the Prophet came out with the message of Islam by 8 years, or the other one is by 14 years, based off those 2 and based off the dates of her death. So that is an estimation of the kind of birth of Salama radwanullahi ta'ala alayha. And of course, when she passed away, Ayman performed her ghusl, and she was taken to Baqi' and buried in Baqi'. Now, there's a book called Tarikh al-Madina, and in this book, the scholar says the following: the grave of Salama is in Baqi', where Muhammad ibn Zayd ibn Ali is buried, close to the grave of Fatima, It was dug out, and 8 arm lengths inside it was written, Salama, the wife of the Prophet. From this they know her grave, and Muhammad ibn Zayd ibn Ali asked his family members to bury him there. Though the scholar here then comments and says that it's possible he's not referring, of course, to the grave of Fatima, the daughter of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because we don't exactly know where the grave of Fatima alayhi salam is, correct? But it's possible that there was a mistake here from the author that this is actually Fatima bint Asad, the mother of Amir al-Mu'mineen, and that she's buried somewhere near that area. And in context, based off what I have read and trying to kind of dig, it's when you go to Baqi', it's very hard to know where anything is because of the sanctions that they have there, and unfortunately, even visiting the Imams alayhim salam. But based off what I have read and between these narrations, it says that her grave would be when you enter Baqi' and where the 4 Imams of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam are buried, her grave would be somewhere to the left or just behind in that area, right? Because the grave of Fatima bint Asad at least is known, and that her grave would be somewhere close by. But other than that indication, actually, this sacred and holy woman that has done so much for Islam, that's the most we know about. And that in itself is a huge oppression in her rights. But we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hasten the reappearance of Imam al-Mahdi, and hopefully he'll be able to, Ajatala Farajuh al-Sharif, tell us where these graves are and kind of build pointers, because you need a guide, right? I remember when I was my first time there, I am just walking around not knowing where everything is happening. Luckily, I heard an older gentleman talking to another Iraqi gentleman, and then I kind of butt in, and I'm like, Uncle, can you explain where is this, where is that? And subhanAllah, at the end I found out he was a sheikh as well, and he's been here several times, and he started pointing me, oh, the sons of the Prophet are buried here, al-Banin is buried here, and this based off his knowledge coming for the last 30, 35 years. So yeah, I was lucky that I was. Other than that, all I know is I just walked around, just saying salam to whoever I think I know where it is. Other than the imams, but the imams you can't even see them as well, because as soon as you walk in, there's almost like a retaining wall that's covering the imams, right? And there's soldiers. But that's the most we know. So inshallah, the day will come where we'll be able to know where this grave is, because it's a great oppression that Salama alayha radwan, we don't know much about where her grave is. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So her first husband now. So now we go to her first husband. We said his name was Abu Salama as well, and it was her uncle's son. So it was her cousin, and his name was Abdullah ibn Abdul Asad ibn Hilal ibn Abdullah ibn Umar ibn Makhzum. Right? He's also Makhzumi. And he was from amongst, again, the first people to accept Islam, like we said. And according to the reports that the historians have mentioned, the one I have here is from Ust al-Ghaba, that he was the 11th person to accept the Islam after the Prophet ﷺ had propagated his message. And also the first to perform the migration to the Habasha, to Abyssinia, with his wife Salama, as well as the second migration to Medina. All this is Abu Salama radhwanullahi ta'ala alayh. He was also known actually as the brother of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayh through wada'ah, so through milk kinship. And that the mother, the lady that basically breastfed them, one of them, other than Halima, there's another called Thuwayba. This is reported again in Tarikh al-Tabari, and she also nursed Hamza ibn Abd al-Muttalib. So Hamza ibn Abd al-Muttalib, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, and Abu Salama are all brothers in Rada'ah, all in milk kinship, all 3 of them. And like we said, the first to do migration to Medina as well. And so I mentioned this last week as well when I concluded the biography of Mus'ab ibn Umair, because there is kind of a question as who was the first to migrate to Medina. We did mention that Mus'ab ibn Umair was the first to go to Medina because Rasulullah had sent him directly in order to do da'wah, to teach people Quran, to read Quran, to teach fiqh, Islamic jurisprudence, and so on. But the first person to do the migration, and now here's the difference of opinion, it was actually Abu Salama, and the difference is that did that happen before the bay'ah of the Aqaba, the Pledge of Allegiance with the Ansar, or right after it directly? That's the only difference of opinion, and from reading the historical reports, it's hard to mention because all of them kind of mention one thing, but according to this, that means he would be the first to actually perform the migration, And Mus'ab ibn Umair was the first to go and have a specific call to Islam and teach people Quran. And actually, for those who've been to Medina as well and have been to the surrounding mosque, it says that after that Pledge of the Ansar, and when he made it to Medina, he stayed in Masjid Quba, in that area of Quba. That's where he resided until the Prophet ﷺ came. So that kind of covers, in a way, his migration. Now, his Islam, there's a little bit we know about his Islam, but some of you will probably really like the sentiment of this beautiful story here because it involves Abu Talib. And Abu Talib, subhanAllah, everywhere you look, Abu Talib is a guardian, guardian of the Prophet, guardian of the Muslims, and you'll find even here, he's the guardian of Abu Salama. So basically it's reported, as you know, but we mentioned this previously as well, that the first days of Islam was very, very difficult. We're talking about Quraysh made it very difficult for the Muslims, and we saw the stats of Mus'ab ibn Umair and how he was dealt as well. So, being somebody who was from an honorable tribe, from Ibn Makhzum, this man becomes Muslim, and we don't know how he became Muslim. All we know is that he became Muslim, and then his tribe continuously then began to look for him and follow him, and wanted to torture him and make sure to basically torture him out of Islam in a way. Torture him to the point where he leaves the religion of Allah. So what did he do, of course? Because there is a connection with Banu Hashim. He goes to Abu Talib alayhi salam, right? The guardian of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. Because the mother of Abu Talib was a Makhzumiyya from Banu Makhzum. And she was the mother of Abdullah. So he goes to Abu Talib to seek refuge with Abu Talib. And then Banu Makhzum storm Abu Talib. They come to Abu Talib and they say to him, "Oh Abu Talib, we understand that you keep Muhammad safe from us. But what do you have with our companion? He's from us. Why do you keep him?" Right? They're just complaining. Like, okay, we understand Muhammad is your nephew, right? He's your, you're close to him. He's the same. But this guy's from Banu Makhzum. He said, "Look, he sought refuge in me, right? And he is the son of my sister. And if I do not keep the son of my sister, then why keep the son of my brother?" This shows you that Abu Talib alayhi salam, anybody who comes to his house seeking refuge, no matter where you're coming from, right? As soon as you enter my house, you are in the safety of Abu Talib alayhi salam. So then it says their voices became loud and everything, and then they walked away. And that's kind of all we know about Abu Salama's early days of Islam. And I think not long after that, I think 4 or 5 years, is when he was then asked to go to the Habasha, which we'll look at in more detail if we have time, because Rasulullah tells him that we have a good relationship with the people of Abyssinia. So go there, and the king there will make sure to keep you in safety and take care of you, and you'll be in his safety. So now we go, and then of course I think now when it comes to his death as well, that's also another part where the historians are like left and right, because there's a couple of dates, and the solution, again, it's a lot to look at as well, but basically they say that he died in the 4th year after Hijrah, and some say 3rd year after Hijrah, some say 2nd year after Hijrah. The easiest way to look at it is that the best evidence for this is that when Imam Ali alayhi salam married Sayyida Fatima alayhi salam, right, which occurred in Ramadan, and then the Zaffa to the house of the Zaffa of Imam Ali alayhi salam, where the Prophet took his daughter, that happened in Dhul Hijjah. So between Ramadan and Dhul Hijjah is when the marriage happened. So the scholar here, what he mentions, he says that at that incident, the historians all agree that Salama was present. Actually, it mentions that Zuffat ila dari Salama. So when the procession that they had, that was actually in the house of Salama. So Salama was present and during that time. And Salama seems that she was also married to the Prophet, because it all says that Dar Salama was near the mosque as well. So if you take that into account, it's hard to mention that he died after Badr and after Uhud in the 3rd and 4th year after Hijrah, because by that time the marriage of Imam Ali alayhi salam had happened, and they were already together. Rasulullah was already married to Salama. So it's kind of difficult to mention the exact date, but according to what I have read, it would have happened before that date, in Shahr Ramadan, before Badr, by we don't know how many months, 6 months to a year, but again, when it comes to this early Islamic history in this period, it's very difficult. So this great man, again, Abu Salama, it's hard to know much about his, unfortunately, also the date of his death. And from what I personally read, and my own shortcomings, I'm not even sure I was able to find out where he's buried as well. So that's one of the other individuals we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us to finding his grave, inshaAllah, to pay our condolences. Now, this part is also very beautiful, is that the way that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, number one, you'll find that the way he speaks to Salama, consoling her after the death of Abu Salama, first of all, it's very beautiful coming from Rasulullah, but at the same time, he also kind of mentions, in a way, the merit of this man. So basically what happens is that Abu Salama passed, the Prophet attends the funeral, and then he prays to Allah for his forgiveness. And then he reports that he entered upon Salama in order to send his condolence on his passing, and he says, "Oh Allah, ease her sorrow, mend her broken hearts, and replace her with something better." Right? So now you guys probably know where this is going. And then the narrator says, Allah indeed replaced her sorrow, mended her broken heart, and replaced him. And this does not mean that Abu Salama is not like any, Abu Salama is still in our eyes greater than any of us, but Allah replaced him with someone greater. The Prophet then married her right after. Right? He comes to her and he prays, he gives her this dua. And it's reported actually that, if I'm not mistaken, I don't know if I have it here. No, I don't have it here, but what I remember is that he also, funny enough, Rasulullah teaches Abu Salama. He says when you have a tragedy, say inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, right? That to Allah we belong and to Him we return, and then recites a dua similar to this. Oh Allah, ease my broken heart. Oh Allah, this, and oh Allah, grant me something better. So it says that on Abu Salama's deathbed, she also recited the exact same dua, and she said, "To Allah we belong and to Him we return." And then she said, "Oh Allah, ease my broken heart and replace me with something better." And you find the Prophet's dua, Abu Salama's dua, and subhanallah, then this great lady marries the Prophet of Islam sallallahu alaihi wa sallam, ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Actually, Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam, I forgot about this one, and this is narrated in Al-Tabaqat Al-Kubra of Ibn Sa'ad. Imam al-Baqir reports the following. He says, when Abu Salama, again, it kind of shows you that it was a great loss to the Prophet. This man had passed away. When Abu Salama passed away, the Messenger of Allah visited Salama. He spoke of what Allah had granted and bestowed upon him, right? And his virtues. He continued to mention, the hadith says, he continues to mention this while leaning on his hand. So he was like probably sitting down, talking to Salama. It says, until the mat left an imprint on his hand from talking to her. So he just started mentioning, we don't know the conversation. All we know is that it takes a while for your hand to leave an imprint on a mat, for him spending all that time talking about the virtues of this man. So she spent her life, and that's why, most of what we know about Abu Salama during life, he was there with the Prophet and did all that he could. And then after that, after his death, of course, we know more about Salama, of course, because then she begins to narrate a lot of narrations from Rasulullah. But it's just amazing that this man had given so much, and amongst the first. And then when you look at it, in relation to Abu Jahl, who was from the same tribe, and where he is, and how he was an enemy to Rasulullah, it's kind of amazing. Two people from the same family and same tribe. One of them ends up becoming the Prophet of Islam, spending all day mentioning his virtues, and another person, all day mentioning his vices till today. So that is quite amazing. Now, what about the children of Salama? We'll end by looking at the last a couple of her children, inshallah. 4 children she had only, and these 4 children were all from Abu Salama alayhi radwan. 2 sons and 2 daughters. It was Salama, Umar or Amr, and I think Zainab and Burda or Barda. So 2 daughters and 2 sons. The first of them, Salama ibn Abi Salama, her first son and the eldest, and of course the kunya of Abu Salama and Salama is known by their son Salama. We also don't know much about this man as well. We do know that he was born actually in Al Habasha, in Abyssinia, right? So that's an interesting piece of note. And the Prophet actually had married him to the daughter of Hamza, Umama, daughter of Hamza, Umama. And this was after the Sulh of Hudaybiyah in the 7th year after Hijrah. And he would actually, because there's an incident that happened where when the Prophet came to Salama to ask in her hand for marriage, and then she says, I'm old and I have children, and who's going to take care? It's like, I'll take care of your children. So now if you go all the way to the 7th year after Hijrah, when he marries her off to Imama, he goes to Salama and says to her, have I fulfilled the rights of your son Salama? Right, I chose for him a good wife, the Umama, the daughter of Hamza. Because he says, I will take responsibility for everything. I will take responsibility for his marriage contract and so on and so forth. So he mentions that to her, saying, have I fulfilled the rights, which is quite beautiful. Date of his birth, again, similar. Estimation can be made. And I think the estimation is that the first 5 years after the Mab'ath, sometime when the Muslims were in Habasha, and which puts him around 16 years old at the time of his marriage, and that's really all we can know. There are some people said that he was possibly born before the first migration. Again, it's one of those things where it's hard for us to get an exact date of the birth of this man. He did not narrate anything from the Prophet. Nothing has been passed down to us that he narrated anything from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He did, however, fight alongside Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullahi alayh, Imam Ali, peace and blessings be upon him, in the Battle of Jamal, and he remained all the way until the Caliphate of Abdul Malik ibn Marwan, and the historians tell us that he did not leave behind any children. That's as much as we know about Salama. Now, for Umar ibn Abi Salama, or as some historians mention that his name is Amr ibn Abi Salama, we know a bit more about the second son. And that's, again, I said Amr because some scholars of Rijal, I think Sheikh Al-Tusi says that the correct pronunciation is Amr, but both of them, I think Umar is more well known, but Amr is also mentioned to be one of the pronunciations of the name of Umar ibn Abi Salama. It says that he, where is it, sorry? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, sorry. Yeah, sorry. So here it says that at the time of if I'm not mistaken, it was the Battle of Jamal. When what happened is that Salama herself tells Ali ibn Abi Talib, and she says to him that I cannot come with you to this battle, so therefore I send with you my son who is more loved to me than my own soul. Take him with you. And you find that the Imam alayhi salam actually praises him in a letter. I'm just trying to find that letter, but there's a letter where he says, a second, sorry, yeah. Where is it on? Okay, the letter is, yeah. It should start somewhere here. So she wrote to Imam alayhi salam saying, I cannot come with you, and then take him with you to Jamal. And he remained, it says he remained with him with Jamal, and then he attended all of the wars with Ali ibn Abi Talib until he says, where is it? Right here. He writes a letter to Umar ibn Abi Salama basically saying, أما بعد فإني وليت النعمان بن عجلان الرازقي على البحرين. So at one point in time, Umar ibn Abi Salama was the governor of Bahrain, in which the Imam had appointed. And then he writes him a letter saying, now I'm going to replace you, and I'm going to put Nu'man ibn Ajlan al-Raziqi upon Bahrain. نزعت يدك بلا ذنب. So that's important. He writes him to Khatay. He says, نزعت يدك بلا ذنب ولك ولا تتريب عليك فقد أحسنت الولاية وأديت الإمانة. So he basically tells him, look, I'm going to relieve you of your duties in Bahrain, but just so you know that I'm not doing this because you did a bad job or you did something wrong. I'm relieving you of your duties without any blame or reproach upon you, for you have performed well in your governmentship and you have fulfilled the trust. The next line now is very beautiful because he basically tells him how important Umar ibn Abi Salama is to the Imam as a companion, فاقبل غير ظنين ولا ملوم ولا متهم ولا مأثوم فقد أردت المسير إلى ظلمة أهل الشام. Accept this change, Ya Umar ibn Abi Salama, without suspicion, without blame, without accusation, for I intend to march إلى أهل الشام وأحببت أن تشهد معي فإنك من أستحضر به على جهاد العدو وإقامة عمود الدين إن شاء الله تعالى. He says to him, I want to march towards the oppressors in Sham in Syria, and I wish for you to be with me. Indeed, you are among those whom I rely for striving against the enemy and upholding the pillars of the religion, God willing. So it's quite beautiful that the Imam says, I'm not replacing you in Bahrain because of anything you did. You're a great man, but I need you with me when we march to Sham, right? I know you've been with me in Jamal, you've been with me all the time, right? I just need you to be, I trust you. You're like my confidant, right? And then the narration says that he died in Medina, also that's around the same time of his elder brother Salama in the year 83 after Hijrah. And that's really all that we know also about Umar ibn Salama, is that he was a companion of the Imam alayhi salam, attended the battles of the Imam alayhi salam. His mother personally sent him, dispatched him, said, go with Imam Ali alayhi salam and attend with him. And he also was known to have a very high love and wilayah for the Imam alayhi salam. In fact, there are some verses of poetry here where he says, and I'll end with these lines, he says, جزيتك أمير المؤمنين قرابة رفعت بها ذكر جزاء موقرا. He says, O Commander of the Faithful, you have rewarded me with kinship by which you have elevated my mention with a weighty reward. He was constantly praising Imam Ali alayhi salam, and he died in the year, as we said, 83 after Hijrah. And then I think that's about it for now, inshallah. And hopefully the next time we meet, whenever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings us, if you guys of course want to continue, is we need to still look at Zainab and Burda, the other two daughters. Like I said, the biography of Salama is very extensive, because then you're going to look at her narrations alone, actually, where she mentions the details of Habasha and how they traveled, was also pretty interesting. And some other instances of her life where she narrates several events that happened, because you'll find that she was also available in several of these wars that Rasulullah had to be a part of. She was also available, either supporting him through her words or supporting through taking care of the wounded and so on and so forth, like Khandaq and all these other ones. You'll find that Salama was there. You know, even though there's no jihad upon the woman, she was there, because the Prophet used to always, in a way, make a draw to see which one of his wives would come with him. And for 4 or 5 of these, you'll find Salama was with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam on the front lines. So we'll leave it at that, inshallah. It's a lot of information. We just hope, inshallah, that we can do her justice, but even though we know that's also it's impossible. But I encourage you, though, I leave you with this, I encourage you, if you can, to spend more time, if you can, see what, I know there's a lot of resources, there must be more resources online. Of course, the book that I found is in Arabic only, but there must be some more resources online that talk about this lady, and it's important that we introduce ourselves, because we said companions of the Prophet and the Ahlul Bayt, and this is a companion of the Prophet and the Ahlul Bayt. This is a companion of the Prophet. She was with Rasulullah, with Sayyidah Fatima, with Ali ibn Abi Talib, with Al-Hasan, with Al-Hussein. She saw all 5 members of Ahlul Kisa, right? She was there consoling the woman of Karbala when Zainab alayhi salam came, right? She was the one who used to talked about Abdullah very beautifully before he left Medina, and kind of embraced him, saying, my son, whatever when you leave, but you leave because, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has written for you this. And especially during these nights, and I end on this note, actually, I promise I'll kind of talk about where we are in terms of the kind of the caravan of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Because we entered Safar, I'll leave you with this final images, inshallah ta'ala, is that right now the caravan of Hussein has, so Ashura, after that Kufa, after Kufa, where did we go? We went all the way until we got to Sham. The beginning days of Safar is when the caravan of Hussein, the Sabaya, the captives, Sayyidah Zainab alayhi salam and Kulthum and Ruqayya and Sakina and other of these captives, Imam Sajjad alayhi salam, who is still shackled, and Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam, have just made it to Sham. And Sham, by the way, when it comes to Al-Muhammad, is one of the most tragic events that the historians mention. Due to the, if you read, now all I gotta encourage you is just go read about the people of Sham during this moment of history, right? From just the time of when Muawiyah was there, even before that, until very much past that, Sham was known to be Nasabit and have hatred towards Al-Muhammad, right? We're talking about the Shamis who were surprised that Ali ibn Abi Talib died in his mihrab, in his prayer. Like they were surprised that does Ali even pray? That was the kind of propaganda that was spent in Sham by Muawiyah during those moments. So we're talking about a city who, when they came, they were celebrating as if they brought captives from not the daughters of the Prophet, right? Captives from just random people, right? That's why they were treated very, very harshly in Sham. It's very, very difficult, these moments of Sham. So I encourage you to spend these nights to introduce yourself to some of these tragedies that occurred to the family of the Prophet, to connect with them, inshallah, on a personal level, so you can soften your hearts and soften our hearts in general towards these tragedies. Walhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, wa salatu wa salamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wa azza al-mursaleen Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa